Hi, and thanks for watching. This is going to be a whirlwind comparison between the learning design ADDIE process and the phases of the design thinking process. It's not a perfect match, but it's something that I wanted to share with the greater world as to how I think we might learn from design thinking as learning designers. So, to begin with, I'm going to assume that we all understand the ADDIE process: analysis, design, development, implementation, and evaluation, which is a fairly waterfall approach to creating learning solutions, whether it be courses, programs, or even learning games. But I'd like to spend a little bit more time on the phases of the design thinking process, which is not as linear, but does have very particular steps. So, just to begin with, looking at empathy, we can use empathy to understand our user needs, particularly, and to get into the heads and hearts of those who are going to be impacted by the eventual learning solution. With that empathy and understanding, we then can define the problem space. So maybe we came in with an understanding of the problem, but through empathizing, through talking to individuals, and through mapping the problem space, we have a new and hopefully better definition of what the problem is. Using that definition, we can begin to ideate. And here I've included the double diamonds that come with design thinking of divergent and convergent thinking. Basically, big ideas, lots of ideas that move into fewer ideas that have been prioritized. And then in that ideation, we start to take the best of those ideas and begin prototyping. And we prototype using low fidelity wireframes or functional versions of what the eventual solution might be. And we test that with users to see what's working, what's not working, and we iterate to come to a better solution. And once we've really got something that seems to be working, we can take that to a broader audience, in our case, learners, and test it with them to see how they're experiencing it, to see what the outcomes are of that. So that's a broad view of the design thinking process, which can be used basically for anything that's complex, anything that's deeply human. And two things that I wanted to highlight in the design thinking process is that it's human-centered and that it's iterative. And those are two lessons that immediately we could be learning as learning designers as we go through ADDIE. A lot of the times we rely on the assumptions and broad strokes on who our learners are and what their problems are, but we could be more human-centered by putting them in the middle of the solution design and testing and checking in with them all along the process, much like we did in the design thinking process. Secondly, being iterative. In ADDIE, because it's waterfall, we do a lot of the solution specking in the beginning, and then we design according to the phases, and then we evaluate right at the end. And I think, like in design thinking, we could be more iterative along the process, almost at every step, but particularly in the design and development steps and in the implementation step, to just see how things are going, test it in, get the feedback, change up quickly, and then by the end of it, we've got a much more robust solution. So you'll see that I put some arrows here, and that's just me trying to basically map together the steps of the ADDIE process and how they might marry up to the design thinking process. I'll cover that in more detail in a later video, but I think the important thing is I've left out evaluation. And the reason for that is because I think we should be evaluating throughout the whole process rather than relying on the beginning phase, the analysis and design, to come up with a solution and then to test that and evaluate that solution right at the end. We should be using our testing and our prototyping throughout the process to evaluate the efficacy of our design. So that's the gist of it. I'd really love some feedback on how these two processes might work well together, how we might map them together, what's different. But ultimately, I think as learning designers, we could be using the agile and the human-centered way of doing design to make our end solutions a whole lot better. Let me know what you think, and thanks for watching.